Good morning, dear children. Welcome back. I am Sithara, your social science teacher. In today's session, we will continue our learning process of Class 7, Term 1, Unit 1 in Geography, Interior of the Earth. This is part 3 of the videos. Come children, let us learn. Before going into today's session, let us have a recap. In the last two sessions, we discussed about the layers of Earth. We learned that the Earth, our homeland, is a dynamic planet. That is, the Earth's surface has lofty mountains, high plateaus, large plains, and deep valleys. And it is undergoing change constantly inside and outside. The interior of the Earth is found to be made of three concentric layers. They are the crust, mantle, and core. The outermost layer of the Earth is the crust. It has thickness 5 to 30 kilometers. It is about 35 kilometers on the continental masses and 5 kilometers on the ocean floors. The crust is made up of two parts. The upper part consists of granite rocks and forms the continent. It has the main mineral constituents of silica and alumina, hence called as Cl. It has got an average density of 2.7 gram per centimeter cubed. The lower part is made up of silica and magnesium. It is a continuous zone of denser basaltic rocks and it forms the ocean floors. It is called seama. It has got an average density of 3 gram per centimeter cubed. The Cl and seama together form the Earth's crust. Cl is lighter than seama and we can say the continents can be floating on a sea of dense seama. The next layer is a mantle and it is about 2,900 kilometers thick. It is separated from the crust by a boundary called as Mohovirichikic discontinuity. The mantle is divided into two. The upper mantle extends down to 700 kilometers, lower mantle 700 to 2,900 kilometers. The core is the innermost layer of the Earth. Another name for core is barysphere. It is separated from the mantle by a boundary called as Weichart-Guttenberg discontinuity. The core also is divided into two parts, outer and inner. Outer core, rich in iron, is in liquid state. It varies from 2,900 kilometers to 5,150 kilometers. The inner core, composed of nickel and ferrous, is in solid state. The central core has very high temperature and pressure. It goes from 5,150 kilometers to 6,370 kilometers. We also learned about the movements of the Earth. The lithosphere is broken into a number of plates called as lithospheric plates. And each plate, whether it is oceanic or continental, moves independently over the asthenosphere. The movement of the Earth lithospheric plates is termed as tectonic movements. And where does the energy come from? It comes from the internal heat of the Earth. And these plates move in different directions at different speed. At places, these plates move away from each other, creating rifts on the surface. At some places, these plates come closer and collide. When an oceanic plate collides with a continental plate, the denser oceanic plate is forced below the continental plate. Pressure from the rocks heats up and melts, and the molten rock rise again, forming volcanic mountains along the continental edges. Alternatively, a trench may be formed between two plates. In some other cases, when two continental plates converge, neither plate can be forced under the other. Instead, folds are created. The great mountain ranges like Himalayas is formed. Children, you can classify the Earth movements on the basis of the force. If it is acting in the interior of the Earth, it is called as endogenic. The force that works on the surface of the Earth is called as exogenic force. Endogenic forces, that is forces from the interior, causes sudden movements. Exogenic forces produces slow movements. Endogenic movements produce earthquakes and volcanoes and cause mass destruction. We also learned about earthquake, which is a sudden movement of a portion of Earth's crust that produces shaking or trembling. The point where these vibrations originate is called as a focus of the earthquake. The point of the Earth's surface directly above the focus is called the epicenter. From the focus, the earthquake vibrations travel in different directions in the form of seismic waves. The earthquake waves are recorded by an instrument known as seismograph. The magnitude of an earthquake is measured by Richter scale. Its scale ranges from 0 to 9. The effects of earthquake are drastic. It may cause landslides in mountainous region, falling of buildings, houses collapse, underground water system is disturbed, and fire. The distribution of world's earthquake coincide very closely with that of volcanoes. Regions of greater seismicity are circum-Pacific areas with epicenters and most frequent occurrences along the Pacific Ring of Fire. Earthquakes also take place in Mediterranean Himalayan belt, including Asia Minor, Himalayas, and parts of northwest China. The remaining earthquakes occur in northern Africa, Rift Valley areas, and Red Sea and Dead Sea. Dear children, in this session we will discuss about the volcanoes. Dear children, a volcano is a vent or an opening in the Earth's crust through which hot magma erupts from deep below the surface. So you can see a mountain and there is a vent for that on the crust, and from that the hot magma erupts. The opening is usually circular in form. It is usually of circular type. Volcanic eruptions may also take place through a long crack or fissure through which steam and other materials flow out. So it could be also kind of long crack or a fissure. F-I-S-S-U-R-E, fissure. A fissure is a narrow opening or a crack of considerable length and depth. So it could be of circular or it could be of a fissure type. The molten rock materials within the earth together with the gases is called as magma. What is magma? The molten rock material within the earth plus the gases. It is called as magma. M-A-G-M-A, magma. After it rises to the surface, it is called as lava. So when the molten rock material plus the gas is inside the earth, it is called as magma. And once it rises to the surface, it is called as lava. Dear children, you can see the picture of volcano there. And the root of volcano lies 40 to 120 kilometers inside the earth in the layer called as mantle. The temperature is very high, around 4000 degree Fahrenheit. So the rock will melt and the hot melted rock becomes thick moving substance called as magma. It is lighter than rock solid, so the pressure puts up it outside. You can see the Magna Chamber, which is an underground area where the thick molten rock is collecting. And you can see the lava flowing, that is a molten rock flowing down the sides of volcano. A crater you can see there, which is a bowl-shaped depression around the mouth of the volcano. And vent is a central or channel in the volcano from where the magma will erupt. Dear children, in course of time, lava and other materials flow out of a volcano, accumulate around the openings and form a conical hill, or a mountain vent is an opening or mouth of a volcano. That is, the lava and the other materials form a conical hill, or the mountain vent which is at the opening or the mouth of a volcano. The top of the cone is usually marked by a funnel-shaped depression which is called as a crater. So we can see a cone is formed and the top of the cone is in the shape of a funnel and it is depressed, that is going inside, and it is called as a crater. If the crater of a volcano is of great size and the shape is like a basin, it is called as caldera. If it is funnel shaped, it is called as crater. If it is shaped like a basin, it is called as a caldera. Caldera. Now, so children, craters are the vent after the eruption, and caldera is formed underground with vertical walls when the magma chamber of the underground empties. So you can say the difference between crater and caldera is just the size. A caldera is formed when the collapse of the volcano is inward. When it is inwardly collapsing, it is called as a caldera. Craters are formed by the outward explosion of rocks. Calderas are caused by violent explosions which blow away the entire tops of great cones. Dear children, let us learn about the cause of volcanic activity. What causes the volcanoes to erupt? The temperature increases as the depth increases at the rate of 1 degree for every 32 meters. So as you dig deeper, for every 32 meters, 1 degree of temperature will rise. There is also great pressure. At a depth of about 15 kilometers, the pressure is about 5 tons per centimeter square of rock. So the temperature will increase as well as the pressure. At a depth of around 15 kilometers, it is about 5 tons per centimeter square of rock. So this immense temperature and pressure will have the effect on the mantle. Dear children, under these circumstances, the interior of the earth is in a semi-molten state and it is called as magma. The magma under great pressure has a capacity to dissolve great volume of gases, and some of these gases are also combustible. Combustible, combustible is that can catch fire or burning. This makes volcanic material burst forth through the weak spots in the Earth's crust. And because of the molten state of the magma and the pressure along with the gases that are combustible makes the material, volcanic material, to burst and come through the weak spots of the Earth's crust as volcanoes. Now children, let us learn about nature of volcanic eruptions. What is the nature of eruptions that happen? Sometimes magma rises slowly to the surface and spreads over a vast area. That is, it is rising slowly. Magma, that is a molten rocks from the volcano, is rising slowly to the surface and it is spreading over a very big area. This is known as fissure eruption. What is this called as? Fissure eruption. Some plateaus and plains have been formed in this way. So you can see plateaus and plains being formed by the fissure eruption. For example, the Deccan Plateau in India and the Columbian Plateau in North America are formed because of the fissure eruptions. So two plateaus are formed due to fissure eruptions. They are Deccan Plateau in India and Columbian Plateau in North America. Now what is fissure eruption? It is the magma, that is the molten rocks, rising slowly to the surface, spreading over a vast area. This kind of volcanic eruption is called as fissure eruption. Dear children, now let us learn about explosive eruption. Explosive eruption. If the magma rises quickly to the surface, lava is thrown high into the atmosphere. You can see when it is coming out very quickly from the opening, it is lava. That is a magma. When it is coming to the surface, it becomes lava. It is thrown high into the atmosphere. And besides lava, you get ash, steam, gases and pieces of rock are also thrown out. So along with lava, you get ash, steam, gases and pieces of rock. This type of eruption is known as explosive eruption. This type of eruption is known as explosive eruption. Dear children, the terrible explosion on 27th August 1883 in the island of Krakatau, Indonesia is an example for explosive type of eruption. So in Indonesia in August 1883, a terrible explosion had occurred, and that is a explosive eruption, volcanic eruption. You can see the picture of the explosive eruption that had happened there. Dear children, now let us see the viscosity of lava. Viscosity means the fluidity or runniness of the lava. Sometimes lava are runny like water, but sometimes it is like honey or hot wax. And the viscosity of lava is determined by the amount of silica and water in the magma. High viscosity lava is rich in silica and has little water. So if it is viscous, it has rich in silica and little bit of water. Low viscosity lava has little silica but lot of water. It moves rapidly, forming smooth flows. Dear children, let us understand about volcanology and volcanologists. The scientific study of volcanoes are called volcanology. What is volcanology? Scientific study of volcanoes. VOLCANOLOGY, volcanology. People who study volcanoes are called as volcanologists. VOLCANOLOGIST. Another important island is the barren island in Andaman and Nicobar. It is the only volcano that is available in India. The only volcano of India is there in the barren islands, and it is situated in the Andaman Sea. It is lying about 138 kilometers northeast of the territory's capital, Port Blair. That is, it is around 135 kilometers northeast of Port Blair in Andaman Islands, and is the only active volcano along that a chain of volcanoes from Sumatra to Myanmar. Now children, let us learn about the types of volcanoes. Dear children, volcanoes are classified according to their periodicity of eruption and state of activities. So we can classify the volcanoes based on two things. First is the periodicity of eruptions, how frequently or how rarely they are erupting, and their state of activity, how active they are or how dormant they are. We can classify them as active volcano, dormant volcano, extinct volcano. Which are they? Active, dormant, extinct. Now let us learn in detail about active volcano. Volcanoes that erupt frequently are called as active volcanoes. Volcanoes that will have the eruptions frequently is called as an active volcano. Most of the active volcanoes lie in the Pacific Ring of Fire belt, which lies along the Pacific coast. So you have the Pacific Ocean, and on the coast of the Pacific Ocean you have a belt, Pacific Ring of Fire belt. Now dear children, what is the importance of Ring of Fire? Apart from being the center of the most seismic activity and volcanic activity, the ring houses the deepest trench in the world. Tectonic plates meet here, which means that we may see the formation of the world's largest supercontinent here in future. Dear children, when the explorer Ferdinand Magellan visited Earth's biggest ocean in 1520, he found the waters pleasantly calm and called it Pacific or peaceful. The irony is that he did not know there is a vast loop of volcanoes, trenches and seismically active places running through and around the Pacific, called as the Pacific Ring of Fire, where the most of world's earthquake and volcanic events take place. Now let us learn about the other active volcanoes. Dear children, there are about 600 active volcanoes in the world. How many volcanoes are there? Around 600. Mount Stromboli in Mediterranean Sea, Stromboli, Stromboli in Mediterranean Sea, St. Helens in USA, Pinatubo in Philippines. So the Active volcanoes are Mount Stromboli in Mediterranean Sea, St. Helens in USA, and Pinatubo in Philippines. The world's biggest active volcano is Mauna Loa in Hawaii. Mauna, Mauna Loa, Loa, and it is situated in Hawaii. Mauna Loa is one of the 5 volcanoes that form the island of Hawaii in the US state of Hawaii. It is in Pacific Ocean. It is the largest subaerial volcano in both mass and volume. Dear children, now let us learn about dormant volcano. Now let us learn about dormant volcanoes. These volcanoes have shown no sign of activity for many years, but they may become active at any time. These are called as sleeping volcanoes. So volcanoes which show no sign of activity for many years, but they may be active at any point of time. Such volcanoes are termed as sleeping volcanoes. Vesuvius Mountain of Italy, Mount Fujiyama of Japan, Mount Krakatoa of Indonesia are famous examples of dormant volcanoes. Dear children, Stromboli is known as a lighthouse of the Mediterranean Sea. Now let us learn about the extinct volcanoes. Volcanoes has not erupted in past 1000 years is often listed as extinct volcanoes. Volcanoes which has not erupted for the past 1000 years. The top of extinct volcanic mountains have been eroded. Mount Papa of Myanmar and Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya of Africa are examples of extinct volcanoes. Having learnt about the types of volcanoes, let us see the distribution of volcanoes in the world. How the volcanoes are distributed across the globe. Volcanoes are located in clearly defined pattern around the world. You can find clearly defined patterns of volcanoes. They are closely related to regions that have been intensely folded or faulted. So in 2 places you can find these volcanoes, the regions that are intensely folded or faulted. Dear children, a faulting occurs when rock fractures under the accumulation of extreme stress by compression and extensional forces, whereas folding occurs when rocks are compressed such that the layers buckle and fold. Dear children, there are about 600 active volcanoes and thousands of dormant and extinct ones. They occur along the coastal mountain ranges, as offshore islands, and in the midst of oceans. So you can find oceans in the coastal mountain ranges, offshore islands, that is a little bit away from the mainland, offshore islands, and in the midst of oceans. So see, 3 places you can find the volcanoes, but there are few in the interior of continents, but you can find very few only in the interior of continents. The volcanic belts are also the principal earthquake belts of the world. The volcanic belts coincide with the earthquake belts of the world. Dear children, there are 3 major zones of volcanic activities in the world. How many are there? There are 3 major zones. They are Circum-Pacific Belt or Ring of Fire, the Mid Continental Belt, and the Mid-Atlantic Belt. Circum-Pacific Belt, Mid-Continental Belt, and Mid-Atlantic Belt. The Pacific Ring of Fire is an earthquake belt that experiences 81% of the largest earthquakes in the world. It extends from Chile northwards along the Pacific coast of South America, Central America to Mexico in North America. It also passed through Japan, Philippines, New Guinea, Southwest Pacific Islands, New Zealand. The various mountains and volcanoes of the Alpine mountain chain, Mediterranean Sea, and volcanoes found along the Alps and the Himalayas come under the Mid-Continental Belt. Mid-Atlantic Ridge is a mid-ocean ridge that is located along the Atlantic Ocean's flow. It separates the Eurasian and North American plates in the North Atlantic Ocean and South American and African continental plates in South Atlantic Ocean. Children, at a convergent plate boundaries, oceanic crust is often forced down into the mantle where it begins to melt. Magma rises in and through the other plate, solidifying into a granite, the rock that makes up of continents. Thus, at convergent boundaries, continental crust is created and oceanic crust is destroyed. It includes volcanoes of the eastern and western coastal areas of Pacific Ocean. This zone is popularly termed as the Pacific Ring of Fire, which has been estimated to include 2/3 of world's volcanoes. That is, in Circum-Pacific Belt, you can find the convergent oceanic plate boundary. It is called as Pacific Ring of Fire because 2/3 of world volcanoes can be found here. Dear children, the Ring of Fire, also referred to as Circum-Pacific Belt, is a path along the Pacific Ocean characterized by active volcanoes and frequent earthquakes. It runs to a length of 40,000 kilometers and more than 450 volcanoes can be located. Now let us see about the Mid Continental Belt. This is a volcanic zone of convergent continental plate boundaries. Convergent boundaries are when two plates are moving towards each other and they are either pushed, subducted, or under the other. And it includes the volcanoes of alpine mountain chains, the Mediterranean Sea, and the fault zone of Eastern Africa. The important volcanoes are Vesuvius, Stromboli, Etna, Kilimanjaro, and Kenya. Surprisingly, the Himalayas have no active volcanoes at all. Now let us go through the Mid-Atlantic Belt. Dear children, this belt represents the divergent boundary of plates located along the Mid-Atlantic ridges. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge is a mid-ocean ridge located along the floor of the Atlantic Ocean and part of the longest mountain range in the world. It is also called as Mid-Ocean Ridge, which is an underwater mountain system. Volcanoes of this area are mainly of fissure eruption type. The volcanoes are fissure eruption types. Iceland is the most active volcanic area and is located on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. St. Helena and Azores Island are other examples. Barrel Island is the only India's active volcano in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Its first eruption was in 1787. Was dormant for more than 150 years, started erupting in 91, and since January 2017 it's been active. There are several small submerged volcanoes there. The activities here caused the tsunamis in 2004. Before winding up the session, let us have the summary of the lesson. The Earth's interior structure is compared with that of an apple. The crust is the outermost layer of the Earth. The upper part of Earth's crust is Ciel. The lower part of the Earth's crust is Sima. The mantle is about 2,900 kilometers thick. The lithosphere is broken into a number of plates known as lithospheric plates. The earthquake waves are recorded by an instrument known as seismograph. Tsunami is caused by an underwater earthquake. A volcano is a vent or opening in the earth crust through which magma comes out. The shape of a volcano depends on the type of lava and force of the eruption. There are 3 major zones of volcanic activity in the world. Dear children, time for glossary. Core, C-O-R-E, core is the innermost layer of the earth. Mantle, the second layer beneath the crust. Mohorichic, discontinuity. M-O-H-O-R-O-V-I-C-I-C D-I-S-C-O-N-T-I-N-U-I-T-Y. Mohorichic discontinuity is a boundary that separates the mantle from the crust. Landslide, downward movements of rock debris of the mountain. Seismograph, Tsunami, Tsunami, tsunami are sea waves caused by an underwater earthquake or a volcanic eruption under sea. Vent, V-E-N-T, vent is an opening of the earth's surface from which volcanic material is emitted. Magma, M-A-G-M-A, magma is a molten state of rocks. Lava, the solidified form of magma after it reaches the surface of the earth. Before winding up today's session, let us have a recap of what we learned. We learned that a volcano is a vent or an opening in the earth's crust through which hot magma erupts from deep below the surface. There are two types of volcanic eruptions, fissure eruptions and explosive eruptions. The scientific study of volcanoes are called as volcanology, and the people who study volcanoes are called volcanologists. The three types of volcanoes are active volcano, dormant and extinct. There are three major zones of volcanic activities in the world. They are Circum-Pacific Belt, Mid Continental Belt and Mid Atlantic Belt. Now it is time for worksheet. Worksheet number 3. Roman number 1. Answer in a word. Question number 1. Give an example of extinct volcano. Give an example of extinct volcano. Roman number 2. Answer the following briefly. Question number 1. What is a volcano? What is a volcano? Question number 2. Name the three types of volcanoes based on the periodicity of eruption. Name the three types of volcanoes based on the periodicity of eruption. Roman number 3. Distinguish between. Question number 1. Active volcano and dormant volcano. Active volcano and dormant volcano. That's all for today's session, my dear children. Thank you for watching. For more videos, please stay tuned to our channel.